What is going on, folks? Welcome back to Lake Fork Bass Fishing Top Baits Live. Coming to you from the Your Lake Fork Guide, Big Bass Dojo, also known as my garage. Hope you guys are having a wonderful week. We're going to try to set you up for a wonderful weekend of bass fishing goodness. Crazy changes on Lake Fork this week. Different conditions caused something to happen in the water column that I think I finally figured out after a couple days of struggling. We're going to discuss it a little bit today. I think I finally got a grasp on what's going on. We're going to break down what's been happening. Hopefully this will help you guys make adjustments on your lakes as well. Nope. Yep. I don't know. We'll let y'all be the judge of that. Yes, I love this song so much. Little Frogman from Whiskey Myers in your ear right there. I'd rather be fishing. Yes, I would. We'll fade that on out and get into tonight's festivities, as we say. It's been a different week this week. I'm telling you, we got some cool stuff. I mean, it's been a tough week of fishing for everybody at the lake. For everybody, it got tough. And it's been so good, so consistently good. It had everybody scratching their head around the lake. I've talked to a few guys. I've seen other guys making posts about it. It just got tough. I do think I finally figured out what's going on. You're going to hear it here first, man. This is going to be the first breakdown, the first adjustment that you guys are going to hear from anybody on what happened to Lake Fork this week, because it's been so consistently good for pretty much everybody. For basically everybody has been going out and catching them on Lake Fork. It's been one of the rare times on Lake Fork because those fish receive a lot of pressure. We all know Lake Fork bass can be tough to catch, a lot tougher than most other lakes. So it's been one of the rare times where just everybody that shows up to the lake's kind of getting bit over the last month or two. And then now all of a sudden like a light switch. So we're going to break that down and discuss what happened. It should be a good one tonight. We'll also show you the top baits, my top bait recommendations for the weekend, of course. As we get into this tonight, man, thank you guys so much for joining us. And I'll also answer any questions you guys have. You guys want to get into some drama, some controversy, ask me about it, whatever it is, it don't matter. We'll tackle all the questions that we can, answer as many as we can get to. You know how we do it around here, man. So thank you guys once again for joining us. Do me a favor, as you get in here tonight, go ahead and drop that thumbs up, man. Let me know if you like these. If you want these to keep going every week. I don't know why I say that. We've been doing it for years. They're going to keep going whether you like them or not, but I sure would appreciate it if you hit the thumbs up. That'd be great. It would help you, boy. It helps me. And also commenting. Commenting would be wonderful. And sharing. Sharing is the number one way that you guys can help us out here at Your Lake Fork Guide. We sure appreciate it. Say some hellos and how you doing to some of the early risers in the house. We got the Bass Fishing Mafia, Russell Stroman, Eagles 20 John, Brad Lamar, John Hodson, Big John's Life, OMG Wanda Jean's Garden. That's a great name. Brian Muirhead, James Clifton, John Sherrod, John Hodson, Kevin Jones, just to name a few early in the chat. Also, I know you guys probably saw the video yesterday. A lot of y'all did, of us breaking lots of rods. We have been breaking lots of rods. In fact, these are good here. These are my rods that I've been using that I brought in here to show you guys baits that I've had tied on. Let me move those. This entire pile of rods, I don't know how many's in there. 20, maybe more. There's a bunch of them. But they're all broken. Every one of them broken. So we can discuss some of that too and discuss why I decided to actually... why I didn't disclose it for a little while, why I didn't show you guys the rods were broken, and why I decided to disclose it, because there's very specific reasons. If you want to know why I decided to show you guys the rods that are breaking, I will disclose that. We can explain some of that as well. So, with no further ado, let's get into the top baits, because I'm going to tell you guys the baits that I think you should throw, and then we're going to break down what's going on in the lake, and then maybe we'll talk about broken rods or whatever else y'all want to talk about in the questions. The baits haven't changed much. The same baits over the last month really haven't changed, and I'm not catching them great. So here's what I would say with this week's top baits. Don't be scared to explore outside of my recommendations. I don't have a flutter spoon here. I think a flutter spoon would be a good thing to pick up. I don't have a deep diving crankbait in here. I think a deep diving crankbait's fine to pick up. I don't have a drop shot because that's just not how I fish. I honestly think it might be the time for the drop shot. I think the drop shot might be the very best bait to throw on the lake right now. A true traditional finesse drop shot, because the bite, it has gotten tougher. I think that might be the best bait to throw. That being said, I'm kind of being hard-headed right now. I'm doing what I do. I'm an offshore dragger. When I get offshore, I'm a dragger. That's how I like to fish, and I like to drag bigger, bulkier profile baits for the most part. As you'll see, most of these baits tonight are going to be exactly that. Say it with me, everybody. Big perm! Big perm on the big shaky head. Big straight-tailed worm. Plum apple's been the color I've used the most. Red shad can work. June bug can work. I don't think the color, play with the colors. They seem to be biting different ones at different times, but I really don't think any one particular color, just a darkish type of color seems to be, a red or a dark color seems to be the best. But big straight-tailed worm is a great bait and we're going to talk about the lake conditions and how we're finding them and all that, but it's all offshore fishing right now. It's still all offshore fishing in my boat. Then an old red shad Berkeley power worm. You could also pick up a plum apple or a June bug. Same thing on the colors, just a red or a dark. I think red shad's a great color right now because it combines the red and the black and gives you that red and that dark in one fell swoop there on that bait. So I really like red shad as a color right now. I think it's a very, very good color on Lake Fork. And I've been catching them on the big shaky head worm on big perm and the big ribbon tail worm in red shad lately. The biffle head. Biffle head's a different look than most people give them. Still very effective throwing a green pumpkin biffle bug. Same thing on colors, dark or red. Either one's fine. But the old 3/4 ounce swinging head, wobble head, whatever you want to call it, that's another bait that's still effective right now. And, oh, dependable, man. Bill Wilcox will be proud. But the old bubble fry. The old bubble fry is always a factor in the hot days of summer. A chartreuse pepper bubble fry will always be a factor on any lake in this region this time of year, every year. You can just guarantee that that will be something that can get you a few bites this time of year in this region. Another bait that's come back into play for me that we were throwing a lot earlier in the summer, back when Bassmaster was here, we were throwing this bait a lot in like May, but it's coming back into play a little bit, is the underspin head. A 1/2 ounce underspin with a 4.5 inch hollow body swim bait from Smash Tech on there. That bait is coming back into play for me and starting to get a bite or two here or there as well. So those are the top baits right now for me. Like I said, don't be scared to throw a hair jig. Don't be scared to throw a flutter spoon. Don't be scared. The bite's gotten tough, so you got to try some different baits, including the ones I mentioned earlier as well. So let's discuss what's happening on Lake Fork, because it's been weird, dude. Like I can't express it. It's been as big of a swing from everybody catching them to basically nobody catching them, or at least nobody I've heard of catching them, like overnight. It's been as sharp of a swing as I've ever seen. I think it'll come right back. And so let me explain to you what I think happened. Here's what I think happened. We had a pretty good thermocline set up in the lake last week. It varied in depths depending on what part of the lake you were in. And it wasn't just like you could go to some areas where there wasn't really much of a thermocline at all. A little bit of haze, early, sometime in the middle of the day, it would break up. So some of the thermocline wasn't really set up very good. But most of the lake had a thermocline in it. And it could be as, I didn't go to the upper ends of the lake. It was probably even shallower up there. But I've seen it, as shallow as 17, 18 foot. And then I saw it setting up deep, like 22, 23 foot. And basically all the fish were between 15 and 20 feet right above that thermocline. And what a thermocline does, it actually helps you in the summertime. It eliminates that deeper water and keeps those fish above the thermocline. When you get a thermocline, everything from that level below is very deoxygenated. There's very, very almost no oxygen content in the water. It's a very low oxygen content. And those fish just don't do good in that. They can't survive in that for a long period of time. And they don't feel good when they get in it. So they stay above that deoxygenated water that's at that thermocline level and below. So it actually eliminates a lot of the lake, makes the lake even smaller, groups the fish up better because it puts them all above the thermocline. Then you just fish structures that have features that peak out above the thermocline levels wherever you are. So that was helping our fish group up, and I think that was a big part of what was making the lake fish so consistently good for everybody. It was making so many of the fish do the same thing. Come this week, we had a storm several days ago we had a pretty good storm that actually dropped the water temp some. Then on top of that, I don't know about Monday. I was with my kids on Monday, but Tuesday and Wednesday, last 2 days before today, we had big winds. Big winds. Now, we have not had that in a while. One component to a thermocline setting up is lower winds. Typically, in the South, in Texas, when you have a hot summer like we're having, 100 degrees every day, you don't get much wind. And we haven't had much wind for the last month and a half, almost 2 months. We just haven't had. Ever since a little bit after Bassmaster left at the end of May, we haven't had much wind for about a month and a half. So that's what's allowed that thermocline to set up that in the heat. Well, when that big wind comes in, it starts turning the lake up. That breaks up the thermocline sometimes. And I think on Tuesday and Wednesday, we had enough wind to really break up that thermocline. And so what happened, in my opinion, this is my theory, is that deoxygenated water, that low oxygen content water that was below that thermocline, got stirred up. So you brought that low oxygen content and churned it up with the good oxygen content, and overall dropped the average oxygen content in the water column that the fish are operating in. And also open up deeper water for those fish to go into and feel the same as they do higher. So of course they get deeper because the deeper water is a little bit cooler. And in my head, at first I was like, okay, we got cooler water temps, a little bit cooler water temps, not a lot. We went from being around 90, 89 to being down to 84 at times, 86, 85. So it just dropped 5 degrees on average probably, the water temp did, which isn't a lot, but it matters. And so I'm thinking cooler water temps, a little more cloud covers at times this week, and a whole lot more wind keeping the water churned up and cooler. Those fish should go shallower. That's where my first instinct was. Those fish should go shallower. Well, I was wrong. Come to find out, and I didn't figure this out. We got pulled off. I left the water early today because we had some lightning gathering around us. We were only out on the water for about 2.5 hours this morning because we started getting lightning gathering around us. It wasn't on the lake, but it was close, and I'm extremely cautious when it comes to lightning, guys. So we went ahead and pulled the plug early on the trip because of that lightning. But while I was out there, I started out doing what I've been doing and struggling, you know, not catching anything early this morning. And then just went and graphed some brush piles that were up in like 10, 12 foot of water, which was shallower than I've been fishing. I kept looking shallower. And then I wandered out off that point and just ran my graph off the side of that point and found a few fish. And then I went back in that same depth range and found a few. And I started consistently finding fish on multiple spots in 20 to 25 foot of water. So even though the lake's not truly turning over, we basically are experiencing a little miniature version of a turnover that's more or less been wind driven, in my opinion. And everybody knows when a turnover happens, man, it's a bad time to fish. Like you almost just ain't even no use in going. It gets extremely difficult to catch fish during the turnover. So, in my opinion, we've had kind of almost a little small version of a turnover based on a little bit of temperature drop, but more of the wind churning up that low oxygen water into the water column, dropping the overall oxygen content that the fish are experiencing, and it's made those fish much, much, much less active. And that's why it was like a light switch. Everybody fishing that I've talked to and that I've seen or heard posting and all that, everybody struggled much, much more than they have been all of a sudden at the same time. And so that's what I think has happened. So I think, how do we combat that? First, you got to go into it and understand your expectations. It's going to be tough. The bite, you're not going to pull up there and catch, 4 or 5 big ones in a row on a spot, or sit there and catch 10 or 15 or 20 fish off one spot like we have been. I mean, that's probably not going to happen. I mean, you never say never in bass fishing. Most likely that's not going to happen right now. You're going to have to grind for one bite at a time. I also think it's important that when you get around fish to stop and slow down and fish very thoroughly. When you find those fish on your electronics, you got to understand they're not feeling good. They can't breathe good. They're not getting the oxygen content that they want right now. So those fish are not as active. In that situation, that's why I think it's time for the drop shot, because in that situation, giving them a smaller, easier meal, slowing down more, being more finesse, taking your time, keeping the bait in their face longer, that is, in my opinion, the way to catch them. The best, I think it's going to be the best way to catch them this weekend. So Good news is we got less wind tomorrow. We're still hot. The weather's still hot. We do have a little more rain forecasted, so there'll probably be some wind with that. But as soon as we can settle back in, and I know everybody's tired of the hot, stagnant heat, but that's what we need. For the bite to get better again, we need it to be hot and calm. If it'll get hot and calm again and set that thermocline back up, it'll group all those fish right back up, and we'll go back to catching them awesome, just like we were. If that doesn't happen, we're going to go into a prolonged but prolonged tougher bite period, in my opinion. So that's pretty technical stuff for a very non-technical guy. Hopefully I explained it to where all you guys can understand it. Y'all let me know in the comments if I did or I didn't. But that's kind of my synopsis of what's going on. And that's the first and probably the most in-depth breakdown you'll hear of what's going on the water column on Lake Fork. We don't, Mike does a good job on his stuff, McFarland, of reading you guys water levels, water temps, and giving you guys kind of some more specific data on his fishing report. But I'll tell you one thing that I'm proud of right here. We try to explain it from an everyday fisherman's perspective, and anytime there's a change, I keep it simple most of the time. Most of the time it's very simple. It's like, hey guys, fish 15 to 20 foot of water, find a hard spot, throw these big worms. I mean, we keep it simple because from a guy who doesn't have a tournament background and I'm still not accepted in the inside of the bass fishing world in some ways. And I never will be because of the way I am, I'm just not going to go along with that culture. I think there's many, many things wrong about the traditional bass fishing culture, and I'm never going to go along with it, and I'll never be accepted in it, and I'm fine with that. I come from the perspective that I think there's more guys like me out there than there are guys that want to fish tournaments for a living or guys that are trying to fish tournaments for a living. I realize that's like the part of the industry that gets the most attention on the surface, but underneath that, I feel like there's a lot more people that are just trying to go get a bite. And that's all I was before I started guiding. I fished some tournaments and I enjoyed fishing tournaments, but I never got into the big, expensive tournaments at all. I just couldn't afford to back then. And I was just a guy that wanted to get a bite. So I try to explain it from that perspective. I don't necessarily always need the exact water temp and exact level of the lake and all that, and I know a lot of guys do like that. I just need, just tell me what depth I need to fish, what type of structure it is, and give me an idea what type of baits it is, and I can go with that. I can run with that. So we try to keep it like that, but then when things do change, we try to explain it in a way where every fisherman out there can understand it. I feel like I'm rambling and talking in circles now. Hopefully I'm not doing a terrible job tonight. Caught 8 in a flurry last week on that bubble fry. I don't doubt it. Like I said, that bubble fry is a bait that it's so consistent on so many lakes in this region when it gets just dog days hot. Man, it's been that for years. That bait's been a staple bait in the dog days of Texas summer for years. That bubble fry is unbelievable. All right, so you guys want to talk about rods. See all these broken rods? These are all broken rods over here. Now, one thing that I've learned over the years, and when I started getting pro staff deals or whatever, so here's how this works. Pro staff deals, usually start out with somebody will give you a discount on baits. And then if you do a good enough job for them, they may give you free baits. If you really do enough good for them and you sell enough baits and they can see that you're moving product for them, they'll not only will they give you some free baits, they'll pay you to use their stuff and talk about it on your platform. If you have a social media platform like I do, they'll actually send you a check every month. I got direct deposit payments from 6 cents every month when I was working with them. When I started working with 6 Cents years ago, they were a much smaller company than they are now. As far as their revenue and their product line and just everything about the company was smaller. And there was never any pressure back then to push any one product or whatever. It was, hey, use what you use and, sell what you sell, and we appreciate your help. And then you start getting contracts involved. When you start getting paid, you start getting contracts involved. And before I go any further, I will tell you this. Everything that I'm going to say in this is going to be true. There's going to be parts of this that are just my opinion. Okay, these are just my opinions. I don't need any more lawsuit threats. I've had so many lawsuit threats from people here lately. It's unbelievable. It's like if you talk about something and you say something they don't like, they're just going to threaten to sue you to try and shut you up. Like there was a live stream we did that talked about some of the stuff that had gone on, and I literally got threatened to get sued by a guy that was mentioned in a very small part of the video, and I didn't even say anything bad about him. Like, it was ridiculous. So, just my opinion. That's all this is. For anybody who wants to try to sue me, kiss my rear end. Because now you can't. You get contracts involved, and now you can't say anything bad. And if a company is supporting you guys, I need you guys to understand this from my perspective. If a company is supporting you, you don't want to say anything bad about a bait. If they come out with something that's junk, you don't want to trash it, right? Like you don't. Like I'll tell y'all right now, there's some baits from 6 Sense Fishing that in my opinion are junk that they've come out with. The ones that are total complete junk, I've just tried every way I could to not talk about them and not mention them. When it comes to the rods, their rods are not junk. Their rods are very good rods, okay? And in the beginning, when I first started getting their rods, I'm being just as honest as I can with you guys, and this is just my experience with them. In the beginning, their rods were very good, and you'd break some, but it wasn't like a lot. It wasn't anything out of the ordinary. I mean, you break rods. That's when you fish every day, and you've got beginners to experienced guys and all in between. Rods are going to get broken at times. People step on them, you know, just guys try to boat flip a fish, don't know what they're doing, grab the top of the rod and break tip off. I mean, these things happen. You are going to break some rods. And in the beginning, I broke a couple rods here or there, but it wasn't anything major that was cause for concern, so to speak. Fast forward to, I would say really honestly, about the last 6 months. For whatever reason, man, these rods are like breaking at crazy rates. Like that video from last night, I broke the one in that video that I filmed last Friday. Then those next 2 rod break hook sets, guys, that happened within an hour in one day when I was trying to film an instructional. I was just trying to catch a couple of fish for an instructional. I couldn't catch any fish because I kept breaking rods. You don't want to show that when it's a company making those rods that you're working with, because you don't want them to look bad. At the same time, I've been telling you guys to buy these rods for 2 or 3 years, whatever it's been. Well, now, over the last 6 months, I feel guilty about and if you'll notice, I didn't really pump their rods that much the last 6 months. There's certain lines, like the unicorn rod was one from the very beginning that broke super easy. So I never told you guys to buy a unicorn rod once, right? Never once did I say, this rod is good. Now it's all their lines. Dude, look. If you follow 6 Sense Fishing, that's a Vega rod, guys. That's a 7.3 heavy Vega rod. That came out earlier this year. This is a 7.3 heavy rod designed to fish with braid and frogs and heavy cover, is what it's supposed to be for. Well, we don't have any grass on Lake Fork right now to speak of. No frog bite to speak of on Lake Fork this year. I've hardly used this rod at all. I mean, I've maybe caught 5 to 10 fish on this rod in total. So I started using it just to get some use out of it. It's a 7.3 heavy. I started using it to drag a big shaky head offshore with fluorocarbon line. I had 60, 70 feet of line out with 20-pound fluorocarbon, set the hook and broke it. I had 3 mornings in a row about a month ago, 2 months ago. I had 3 mornings in a row that started on the first hook set of the morning, a broken rod. All 3 mornings. I mean, it's incredible the rate at which these rods are breaking. Now, in case you didn't know, 6 Sense, they fired me. They decided they didn't want to work with me anymore. They used the incident that happened, which there's been nothing's final on the incident that took place at the golf course at Lake Fork with me. There's nothing final on that. I haven't been convicted of anything. I've gotten charged with something. I haven't even heard a docket date or anything from the district attorney, so I don't know what's going to happen with that. Still don't know. I can tell you this: it was nothing like what it was made out to be by some people around the lake that would love to tear me down. It was nothing like what it was made out to be. Without speaking to me, without so much as speaking to me in any way, 6 Cents fired me, and they said that was the reason. Ironically, it came right on the heels of Lee Livesey's victory on the Bassmaster Elite Series, and in my opinion, it had a lot more to do with that and the controversy that caused between me and Matt Robinson and Lee talking to the owner of 6 Cents and complaining about the video that I made, and we could go over that till we're blue in the face. But me leaving 6 Cents, getting rid of me, in my opinion, had much more to do with the incident involving Lee Livesey and the Bassmaster Elite Series than it did me, than it did the incident at the golf course. So they get rid of me. I still didn't want to dog them, dude. I kind of understood where they were coming from. It's fine, whatever. Like, I can move on from this. It's not a big deal. It hurt because I was getting paid. Like, I'll tell you guys straight up, I was getting paid. From my understanding, I was getting paid more than Lee was. So it stung a little bit, you know, because it hurt my pocketbook, and it was a significant amount of money that I got pulled out from under me all of a sudden. That always hurts anybody. I ain't worried about it. I'm a business owner. I'm a self-employed guy. I'm an entrepreneur. I'll come up with other revenue streams. I always do. These rods, at the meantime, are breaking at a crazy rate. Now, I've earned these rods. All these 6 Inch rods. I've earned these through selling baits for them for 5-6 years. I've earned those rods. It's no different than if you earn your money at your job and you purchase one. It's no different than them giving me this rod. I earned it. As these rods were breaking, I mentioned it to a guy at the company, and I said, hey, you know, these rods are breaking at a crazy rate, and I still need rods. And, I mean, you guys are still going to get the promotion of the rods being on camera and being in customers' hands every day. Can you at least replace my broken ones? I was told no. I was told no. So now I can't even get the warranty that a normal customer would get, even though I've sold countless of these rods for them. They won't even warranty it for me. And I sat on that for a while, and it frustrated me. And the more rods that kept breaking, it frustrated me more and more. So at some point, I owe you guys everything that I have. I've always felt like that. Why did I not tell you about the rods breaking? It would put me in a bad situation. I was in an awkward situation there where I had a company that had taken care of me for all these years and given me all this stuff. I earned it, but they took care of me. I did not want to expose that. But if they're going to be so bad as to not even treat me like a regular paying customer and warranty their product that's breaking, people need to know about that. And people, before you buy it, you need to know. And I don't want to be the guy that exposes that, but now here we are. So, are their rods breaking at crazy rates? Absolutely. Why did I choose now to expose it? They're not taking care of, I mean, granted, I get it. Maybe my rods don't come with a warranty because I don't pay for them. I don't think that's right. But they chose to not warranty these rods that are breaking or not help me out. And these rods are breaking in normal condition. I mean, you can see on the camera. It's just a hook set, dude, with like that 7.7 heavy broken to 4 pieces on a 1.5-pounder way out away from the boat on fluorocarbon line on a normal hook set. Like, there's no way that rod should break in those conditions. So, that's the full story on the rod breakage. You guys know it all now. I'm sure I will get a threat of a lawsuit just for saying this. So, like I said, those are just my opinions and my honest experiences of what's happened. So, one door closed, another one opens, absolutely. And you know what? Here's the deal. It does open me up to be more honest with you guys. And I like that. I like that aspect of it. So, one thing that I will make a promise to you guys right now is I'm going to be extremely cautious about anything that I sign a contract with going forward. And I'm going to put different stipulations in the contract that I reserve the right to not promote something or to be honest about something, because this industry is full of crap. Like, this whole fishing industry is full of BS when it comes to sales gimmicks and gear promotion. I think there's guys out there that are really honest. I think there are guys that are really honest. But there's a lot of people just selling stuff because somebody's giving them a check or giving them product to sell something. And they'll swear it's the best when the reality is it the best? Usually not. Usually not. So I'm going to be very cautious about any type of contract that I sign with anybody going forward, be it rods or tackle or anything else. I probably won't do anymore. To be honest, I really don't foresee me signing anything with another company to promote their stuff. I think I'd rather just be freelance and do my own thing. You know, if I do anything, I may partner with somebody to make my own rods that I feel like deserve my stamp of approval, or even baits. We may make some baits, you know. So if I've got some ideas for baits. I've got some things that I fished with a lot of good baits over the years, and I've got some ideas about how to make some really good baits, and it costs money to do that. But we may make some baits in the future of our own, and we may just start our own little small deal and just go from there. Let's get into some comments. To be honest, the main reason I haven't got into 6 cents baits is due to so many people pushing their product and only their products. Like, they can't use any other baits, or they're the best baits ever. So it's part of the contract game, dude. It's part of the industry. And I will tell you, a 6 cents contract, it says in there exclusively represent them on this bait, that bait, that bait, that bait. Now, there are stipulations. What's funny is with their rods, you look at other guys, the guys that I know, the guys from Lake Fork that work with 6 cents, they're using different rod brands. I'll tell you that. So in their contract, obviously, it's not going to say that they have to promote 6 cent rods. But there is, I know from my experience with contracts I got for 6 cents, there was exclusivity agreements in that contract. So no, I was not supposed to promote other crankbaits. If I found another crankbait, like, I'll tell you guys right now, there's a square bill out there called OSP Blitzmax. It's amazing. I'm not supposed to promote that when I was under contract with 6 cents. I was supposed to promote 6 cent square bill. So there are stipulations like that. That is part of this game. And it's part of the reason why I don't think I'll ever go back to that. And I don't think that I'll take the money, because it forces me to do things that are against my integrity at times. Calvin had an interesting question. What was Calvin saying? Lake Fork had a thermocline. Would you say now that there has been temperature change and wind shift along with other water conditions and pelagic life, I don't even know some of the words you're using, dude. You're using too big of words for me. Would not indicate a turnover as per Cody's analysis during the tournament video. Yeah, no, Cody Mays did say he thought maybe there was a turnover. At that time, there was definitely not a turnover because there was a thermocline building. So that indicates right there was not a turnover. In my opinion, that indicates there was not a turnover building at that time. I do think we've had, I wouldn't even call it a turnover, but more of a churning of Lake Fork that has taken some of the low oxygen water and mixed it up. Yeah, and listen, I don't want this whole rod discussion. Big C says I like a lot of 6 cents gear, but it has never been their rods. Well, that's fine. I did like their rods a lot. And I think their rods are good. They have good rods. But it's just like here lately, man, they can't stay together. They break a lot. Like, as you can see, a crazy amount of breakage going on. they're a good company, man. I'm not dogging the company. Like, they make good baits. They do make good baits. There are baits they make that are not good. I've tried to avoid promoting those as much as I could. There are times when I get sent an email or a text or both from somebody at 6 Cents telling me, hey, can you plug this? Can you plug that? And dude, there's times where I've just got to ignore that. Like, because if I do, I'm promoting something I don't believe in. And I've done that. I've ignored some of their requests to promote things at times. I did the best that I could. I tried to do the best I could, to be honest with you guys. Was there things that I may have mentioned in a video that I probably shouldn't have promoted? Probably so. There's probably been one or two times, but it's been very minimal. I've tried to avoid it every way that I could. Talk about the boat lanes. Is anything safe at these levels? Yeah, we're about down to 7 foot low, just almost 7 foot low right now. Hopefully we'll get some rain soon, but right now we're about 7 foot low, which is fine. I mean, we've seen the lake at 7 3/4 foot low, which was the all-time low in 2011, was 7 3/4 foot. Okay, so yes, most of the buoyed boat lanes are safe. I will tell you, where you take the boat lane that goes and splits 3 ways at Big Mustang, Little Mustang, and Williams, going into Williams, where those trees get tight to the boat lanes, there's some stumps real close to it, like almost in the boat lane there on the buoyed lane. It's just important for you guys to stay tight to the lanes, tight to the buoys. If you don't have a boat lane ship, stay tight to the buoys. If you have a boat lane ship, stay right on your line, even when you're in the buoyed lanes right now. Because there are several areas when you get outside the buoys, if you get a little bit away from them, it can get a little sporty. I mean, it's safe. I mean, down there on the south end, it's still mostly the same. The obvious stuff that's obviously good around the boat lanes, for the most part, is good. You do want to have some knowledge of the lake to navigate it right now. You want to know where you can and can't run, because it is tough. And no, there's no boat lanes card. Every boat lanes card, now that we've gotten 7 foot low, is going to feature some things that are no longer safe. One advantage that we have on mine, the Your Lake Fort Guide boat lanes card is, or the Pro Lanes card is, we have it marked off at 6 foot low and above. So when the lake's at 6 foot low and above, we've got lanes that are marked good. And then at 3 foot low and above, everything's good. So those red ones that are 3 foot low and above, they're no bueno. You don't want to run those. In the 6 foot lanes, I'm trying to think if there's any of them that are bad. I know the one going up into Coffee Creek, you'll run on dry land right now. If you run that one all the way up where it's marked, you will start hitting dry land. Like you'll beach your boat in the inches of water. So you don't want to run it, but there's no reason to go up Coffee Creek right now anyway. The one running into Williams, that little stretch, is marked good at 6 foot low. It's not good at 7 foot low. Or it's good if you're right on the line, but if you're off the line at all, it's not good. Trying to think of any. I'm not sure. The one this is a tough one here to describe, but basically if you're going down the Big Mustang buoyed lane, you can turn off by the point and head over to Lake Fork Marina on that side away from the buoyed lanes. Right when you turn into that, there's a stretch right there that's getting pretty sketchy right now. I mean, most of the obvious stuff is going to be fine right now. If you have any doubt, you need to slow down. It is getting very sketchy to navigate Lake Fork outside of buoyed lanes, and even at times in a couple little sections of the buoyed lanes. I'm trying to think of any other buoyed lane that's bad other than the one going into Williams right out there at the mouth. Ramps that are good, the Popes and Mustang Resort, I think Popes for sure is good. The 515 West and East ramp are still fine. Although the 515 East is kind of a 1-lane ramp now. 154 ramp is fine. I think Oak Ridge Marina is still usable. I think it is. And I'm not sure. I think maybe Minnow Bucket is. I'm not sure. I know for me, I'm using basically the 515 West and the 154 public ramps. That's what I'm using. There's one right next to a buoy in Little Mustang, about 12 inches underwater. Ask me how I know. Yeah, I don't doubt it. I mean, there's going to be some that are going to pop up. Mouth of Little Mustang. Yeah, that mouth of Little Mustang, mouth of Williams is a little sketchy for sure. Yeah. See, here's Doug. Doug's telling us 200, 300 yards and a Little Mustang had a few near the lane in 2011. Yeah, those are in play now. You know, we're right at 7 foot low, and the lowest we ever got in 2011 was 7 3/4 foot low. So if we're here back then and you remember some of the hazardous ones from 2011, those are all back in play now, guys. They're all within reach. Everything that we knew about then. So, I mean, we're less than a foot away from the all-time low, and you know, the forecast we got right now, we're probably going to get there. Favorite big worm for offshore is an old Jean LaRue 11-inch salty snake, but they're hard to find. Dude, I've never used a Jean LaRue salty snake. That sounds intriguing. I will tell you, I like the one that I use because it has no salt. I think having no salt in a worm is a big deal. I think it does factually give the worm more buoyancy, and I think that gives it a better action, especially on a straight tail worm. James says he put it in Minnebucket on Tuesday, so Minnebucket's still good. He said, yeah, all the lanes around there. Yeah, I mean that area over there on that side between Minnebucket and the buoys, all that's wide open. I mean it's always, there's nothing out there so that I've ever known of. Everything I say about navigating the lake right now comes with a at your own risk, okay? Because there's nothing that I've ever known of basically between that eastern shoreline around Minnebucket, Oak Ridge, going all the way down to the dam. As long as you're out off the bank, there's a few little sticks around the bank. As long as you're out off the bank a decent ways, there's nothing between there and the buoys. To the best of your knowledge, what section of the lake has produced more double-digit fish? Wow, that's a great question. You know, this time of year, it's got to be the south end. This time of year, it has to be the south end, I would think. But, I mean, that's one thing that makes Lake Fork special. The whole lake fish is good. I mean, the whole lake. I mean, there was one state record caught all the way down close to the dam. The one right behind it, that's the second biggest bass ever caught in Lake Fork, was caught all the way up at the intersection of Lake Fork and or Garrett and Elm Creek. I think it was Garrett and Elm Creek intersection, which is about as far up the northwest side as you can go. Produced the most double-digit fish overall. Seeing that brings in, like, Glade Creek's kicked out a ton of them in the springtime and in the fall and the winter too. Glade Creek's kicked out a ton of 10-pounders. So has Little Caney. So has Birch. I mean, it's almost impossible to narrow it down to one section. People have been asking me that a lot lately. In general, which area of the lake is fishing better? Is it, you know, northern, eastern, western, southern? Dude, the whole lake gathers schools of fish right now. The whole lake kicks out double-digit fish throughout the year. That's what makes this lake what it is. Try a Jawtech Sultan. I'm guessing that's another big worm. Used to be Giants and Garrett and Elm back there. Yeah. That's why it's the Goat Lake. Absolutely. I'm sure I missed a ton of comments and questions earlier. If y'all want to re-ask them, I'd be happy to answer them now. We're kind of caught up on, I think we've gone through all of our rants and raves, so. Can't wait to get the emails tomorrow from Telling the Truth. You can't handle the truth. It's amazing. It's amazing how many people threaten to sue you for telling the truth. It's amazing how many people try to run you out of business for telling the truth. Jawtech is a mom and pop type bait maker, real down there with folks. I've never met them, don't know anything about them, but I have seen a couple of their packaging, Jawtech packages around the lake. Are guide trips less in the summer months? I don't reduce my prices. Some guys do sometimes. You know, basically it's supply and demand. When guys start having a hard time booking trips, they reduce prices. I don't. I mean, the reality for me is it's a supply and demand, and it's a time investment. You know, time cost analysis, whatever you want to call it. Fortunately for me, I can book every day that I want to book. I can book, so I don't reduce prices. But there are guys that do if you're looking for that. What are some of the junk baits from 6th Sense in your opinion? LOL. Man, I don't want to do that. I will tell you, like I said, I have tried really hard to not promote the baits from them that I don't believe in. So if you've seen me just singing this, if you've seen me catching fish on camera, the bait's legit. It's legit. I'll tell you that. If you've seen fish catches on camera from that bait, I believe in it. It's a good bait. David Garner says, hey guys, hit that thumbs up. Yeah, hit that thumbs up. Give me some likes. I sure will appreciate it. What is my favorite month to fish outside of sight fishing months? I'm usually there November through February. Can be brisk but fun. Yeah, I mean, possibly January. The size of fish you catch is so consistently good in January. There's almost nobody on the lake. And if you get a warming trend in January, it is some of the best fishing you'll ever experience. Like throughout the whole year, you'll have some of your best days. So we have plenty of tough days in January, but I really enjoy fishing in January. I mean, there's honestly no time that I don't like fishing Lake Fork. If I had to pick one, in normal years, it'd probably be August. This year, not so much, because the lake's been fishing so good with it being low, and I think it's going to fish really good in August, like it has been. Like, we just get over this one little change that happened, get that thermocline set back up, and we'll be back in business catching big bags of fish every day. And so will everybody else. You know, it's not like we're doing anything special. It's just what's happening. The only reason I would say August is just because in normal years, you know, it kind of gets, you got shallow and deep fish. You got to work a little hard to catch them. You can do both. And it's just so uncomfortable. I mean, it has nothing to do with the fishing. It has to do with my comfort is why August would be my least favorite. But outside of sight fishing, January might be my favorite overall month, just because I get to fish the way that I like to fish. I'm either fishing grass with power fishing baits, traps and chatterbaits, things like that, or I'm putting a jig in a creek channel. I love both of those things. There's nobody on the lake. I can fish everything I want to in a day, and you catch big fish pretty much every day. Am I still friends with any guys at 6th Sense, or did they stop talking to you? Well, you know, yeah, I mean, no, there's guys down there that I still like and respect. I'm not even mad at the owner of 6th Sense. Like, I've known that guy since high school, and we've never been super tight or anything, but, you know, I respect Casey and what he's done in his company. I don't appreciate some of the things that have gone on in the way this has transpired, and I don't appreciate what happened with the rod deal. You know, that was very frustrating to me. And, you know, my whole big get back at them is just me telling the truth. And if that's an issue, then I'll pay the price for telling the truth. I mean, guys, that's what you get with me. Okay? I will hurt myself. I will cost myself money. I will cause hardships for myself to do what I think is right. I've held off on saying certain things out of respect for them, but you know, at a certain point, you burn that up. And if me telling the truth is hurting you, then that's your problem. You know, like that's on you. You know, you want to try to pay me back legally that because of that, or sue me or threaten to sue me, or if you do sue me, try to cost me lawyer fees. Fine, if you want to do that, that's fine. I'll pay that price. But I'll tell the truth and I'll stand up for what I think's right. And that's all it is. I mean, even the whole incident that happened with me at Links and Lands End, was my behavior out of line in that situation? Absolutely. Someday when all this is cleared up, I'll get to tell you guys the details of that story. I'll tell all of you the details of that story. I had a valid point in doing what I did. Should I have done it the way I did it? Absolutely not. But in my head, and in some people that were with me, and some people that I've talked to since, I had a very valid point. Okay? That's all I'm going to say. Like I said, my behavior did get out of line. I overstepped, no doubt about it. Should have handled it a dozen different ways. But I was, at that time also, standing up for something that I thought was right. And standing up against something that I thought was wrong. So, it is what it is. It's cost me over the years, and it'll probably continue to cost me till the day I kick it. So. Thoughts on the Axel swim jig? Sorry to hear things aren't going perfect with that company. They're lucky to have you on their staff. Well, they don't have me on their staff anymore, and that was their choice. Thoughts on the Axel swim jig? It creates too big of a profile. When you put a swim bait on there, or a trailer, or really any kind on there, it's the screw in and the hook is set too far behind the head. It's an interesting concept. I think it's kind of pointless. I think, in my opinion, the Axel swim jig is pointless. Why do you need to make a swim jig more weedless than it already is? Dude, I've been reeling a swim jig, just a regular old swim jig, their swim jig. I've reeled it through some of the nastiest, densest cover you could ever imagine and fished it very efficiently and effectively through that cover. I think the Axel swim jig is a little bit of a sales gimmick, and I think it's pointless. And it's why you didn't see it on this channel over the years. You never saw me catch a fish on an Axel swim jig. It didn't make any sense to me to have a swim jig where you can rig it completely weedless. Why? A swim jig's weedless as it is. Like, what's the point? That was my opinion on the Axel swim jig. Bill Wheeler says he lives on Caney Lake. January, February, his favorite months. It's awesome. It is awesome. Jaw Tech was started in the 80s, shut down for many years, and was resurrected by creator Bruce and his son Cole. Bruce was one of the best in Texas. Okay. And this is Doug Renner. I mean, he's a guy that knows, he's a stick, and he knows all the bass fishing stuff. Unfortunately, he passed recently. Cole is continuing the business. Cool. So Jaw Tech's a company we need to check out. Interesting. Everybody go get you some Jaw Tech baits and try them out. It's such a double-edged sword. It is. There's a lot of it. You know, and when you're coming up in this business and you get sponsorship offers, you think they're awesome. You think it's awesome, man. Somebody wants to pay me to use their stuff. Hell yeah, I'll use it. You got to be careful, man. Like you start signing contracts and you start giving it. As soon as you sign a contract, you're giving away a little bit of your integrity. And like guys that are chasing the tournament dream, they have to do that to fund that dream. That's the only way it works. And we're going to get into that this Sunday on our podcast. We're going to talk about how they took, in my opinion, Bassmaster made a change in their opens. You know, to qualify to the Elite Series, to the opens, they made a change. And in my opinion, what they did was take the thing that was the most wrong with tournament bass fishing, take the thing that was most wrong with the opens, and made it worse. We're going to discuss that Sunday. What's the best month to fish fork? I mean, for consistently good days, most years typically it's about March 20 to June 10. That's when it's just consistently good for most people that come to the lake. What rods? Have I put out any vids on how to read side imaging? Yeah, I know for sure I've put out some on the settings and all that. What rods will I start buying? I don't know. I honestly don't know. You know, I've used some different companies in the past. Dobbins was a company that I used in the past when I first started guiding part-time. And I like their rods a lot. I used to have some problem with the guide inserts at times, but I mean, their blanks were great. Never had any issues. Thought they were very good. I would spend my money on Dobbins rods. Limit Rods was a company that was out for a little while. I really liked their rods, but you know, one of the owners passed away, and they didn't stay in business very long. And about that time, 6 Cents had come out with rods, so that's when I changed over to the 6 Cents rods. You should have a Your Lake Fork Guide tournament for your subscribers on Fork. Dude, we just did. We do a tournament, and it benefits a great military and first responder related nonprofit. We do it every 4th of July weekend. But stay tuned, folks, because there may be more Your Lake Fork Guide. There may be a whole series of Your Lake Fork Guide tournaments coming in the near future. Doug Renner says he went back to Dobbins. Their much improved guides are mucho bueno now. Good. That was the only issue, was that like their guide inserts would pop out like quite a bit back in the day, which is not a real hard fix. It was just kind of a pain in the butt to constantly be having to fix them. TFO rods, I've used a couple TFO rods in the past. I think they're good too. How do I expect fall transition to play out with the lake being low? I think it'll be good. I think once the fish kind of get through turnover, we should have turnover. Hopefully it happens in August this year like it has in the past. As hot as it is, it may not happen until September. Once we get past the turnover and you kind of get those fish in creeks chasing shad and then fish gathering offshore, eating other species, those offshore fish tend to eat a lot of, bluegill and yellow bass and crappie, and they tend to key in on those, on offshore fish in the fall. And they key in on shad as well, but they key in on the other species a lot. But the shallow fish will be eating threadfin and some gizzard shad and all that. I think it'll be really good. I think there'll be a fall swimbait bite again. I think there'll be, a great square bill bite. The shallow cranking bite will be great. Lipless crankbait, all that stuff will be good in the fall. And there's going to be the same amount of fish in less water than a normal fall. So I think the fall bite's going to be really good. I'm hoping it will, for sure. Coming down in late March, yeah, dude, that's money. That's money, dude. Junior Figueroa said he's been buying H2O TAC 40 rods. I've never fished with a TAC 40 rods. I have way back in the day before I was guiding. I fished with some of those old blue Ethos or whatever they were. They weren't bad rods. I did break one time. But when I wasn't fishing very much, I broke one. It kind of disheartened me a little bit because it shouldn't have broke the way it broke. Well, it's good to hear that they fixed their guides up on those. If Dobbins has the guide situation, like the little rod guides, inserts and stuff, if they've resolved that issue, then Dobbins rods are probably some of the very best on the market. And they've long since had some of the best blanks on the market. Corey Doyle says the advice on heavy jigs and channels last January was very helpful. Yep. Caught some big ones. Yeah, dude, it was good. Is Bob Sandlin on our app? It sure isn't. It is not on our app. Woo, it's getting hot in this garage. I got to go to bed. So, told you guys what's going on in Lake Fork. Tomorrow I'm actually going to go check out another lake. There's a lake I've been wanting to go to a lot. Any school and fish this summer at times. Especially early in the summer there was, and I bet now that we've had that water column churned up a little bit, I bet we'll see some more of them now. But yes, well, there has been some spotty schooling on Fork here and there. A lot of it's sand bass, but there's been some largemouth schooling a little bit here and there on Fork. I was going to tell you guys, I'm going to another lake tomorrow. It's a lake I've been wanting to go check out. I've had some tremendous days and dog days of summer there in the past, so I'm going to go check that out tomorrow. So we may have a new hot lake to talk to you guys about here in the next week or two. So we're going to go check some of that out. So that being said, it's about that time, man. About that time. Sealy Outdoors. If you're coming to Sealy Outdoors, I will tell you this. You might want to go to yourlakefortguide.com. Go ahead and order you a boat lanes chip, Your Lake Fork Guide Pro Lanes. We have them for all Humminbird and all Lowrance models. You might want to go get one of those. Lake's going to be low during Sealy's. If you're prepping for that, watching this video, get you a boat lane chip. Even if you don't get ours, get somebody's. You're going to need some help navigating the lake come this September, ain't no doubt. Is Monticello fishing better? Monticello's closed, bro. Monticello's been closed for like 2 or 3 years now, unfortunately. I'm sure it's fishing great because there ain't been a bass boat on it in like 2 or 3 years. So I'm sure it's fishing amazing. If you can get back there in a kayak, I'm sure kayak guys are tearing it up, launching off the bridge. But God, I miss that lake. That lake was special. That's a special pond right there. All right, let's crank up some tunes and wrap this thing up, y'all. Coming in strong. I don't know. Yes. Thank you guys so much for joining us as always. It's been Top Bass Live from the Your Lake Fork Guide Big Bass Dojo, also known as my garage, man. I appreciate everything y'all do for me. I'm going to keep trying to help you. We're going to keep it real. Keep it real around here. We're going to pay the cost to keep it real around here, apparently, these days. Cheers, y'all. We'll see you next time right here on Your Lake Fork Guide. Mm-hmm.